Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is today. And welcome back. Let's wait for these tubes to fire up all across the fruited plain of the internet before we go ahead and get started. We got some juicy business to attend to today. And sometimes the tubes get a little bit clogged over the weekend, but they are working. And that's tremendous news because we've got some Kilmar deportation El Salvador news. We've got some Ukrainian Trump assassin plot business. And Trump was hanging out with Bukele today in the Oval Office, and we'll talk about it. So let's do a quick preview on what is coming up. Then we'll zoom in further detail. As you can see here today, we're back in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case out of Maryland. The judge behind this one is Judge Zinnis out of Maryland. We'll come back and refresh our recollection on exactly who she is. But remember, last week, she gave us this new order and she said, Trump, you better give me daily updates on where you are, what you're doing, what time you went to bed, whether you brushed your teeth, and if you took the trash out or not. You better send me a note and let me know. And there were supposed to be several updates on this one. And as of this afternoon, did not see one drop for today. And so we may not have one today. We'll talk about it. Anyways, we do have a couple of updates from them. So we got this declaration. Trump said, all right, you want me to give you an update? You want to know what time I went to bed? Okay. So they sent this in, and it kind of doesn't answer what the judge was asking for. And you're going, oh, so the Supreme Court came out last week and really mucked this up a bit. And now the Trump admin is kind of not really working all that hard to facilitate much of anything. And so we'll go through a couple of those updates from Michael Kozak responding to the judge's demands. And then we'll go through what else is happening, because you can see we had another filing. This one's coming out of Colorado. The ACLU gangbanger lawyers are coming in, man, sharks in the water, trying to gain an advantage on that Supreme Court decision. But we'll go through and see what is happening there. Now, they also submitted another request, just making sure. Yeah, so they said, hey, they're refusing to comply. There's going to be gang violence and more. And so the gangbang lawyers are, of course, demanding that Kilmar be released immediately. We've also got another senator who's saying he's going to go down to El Salvador and bang on the gates. Nayib, open this door, and cry to get him out. Trump was on an airplane today, and he said, you know, we're abiding by the rules. We are abiding by what the Supreme Court has said. And if the Supreme Court orders him to do something, he'll do it. But the Supreme Court has not ordered him to do anything, really. So we'll go through that. Here was Trump. And we also had a little excerpt. We'll listen to like, I don't know, maybe 15 seconds of this dude, because he's one of the lawyers from the ACLU organization who is fighting for Kilmar, the deported terrorist that we'll talk about. So all that's coming up. Then I want to go through what happened with Nayib today. He did come in to the White House, into D.C., and Trump gave him a big warm welcome. There is a lot happening there because Nayib, the president of El Salvador, they say, well, he's in your custody. So can you just give us this terrorist back? Just bring him back to America. We're all sitting here going, we don't want him here. He's an El Salvadorian citizen. He never had lawful status in this country. He did not get granted asylum status. He was not here on a green card or visa, permanent resident at all. He was illegal. And the Alien Enemies Act, which was passed by Congress, gives the power to the president to declare alien enemies. That's what he was declared. And so he was afuera out of there. Now, the response has been from the Trump administration, or at least in the media, that this was an administrative error. And I've been irritated with that phrase ever since we first heard it. What the heck? You never admit that. That's like law school 101. Even if you're in the wrong. The answer is never, okay, they teach you this first day of law school. Never is the answer. They also expect you to know how to speak when you go there. But the answer to the question on any legal question is always, it depends. It's never, I was wrong, or they were wrong, or this person was right, or this was bad, or it's always, it depends. Was he illegally taken out of here? Well, it depends, Your Honor. It depends what we're looking at. So why they did this is because, as Stephen Miller is hinting today, there was a poison pill. They fired this person. We covered it. This person got afueted right out of there. His name was Erez Ruvini. He was a prior DOJ person who was there, did a terrible job arguing this case, called it an administrative error, and was basing that on a declaration that came out from Robert Cerna. And so there's a bunch of people today, Anna Bauer and Roger Parloff on X. They do legal reporting, and they're all saying, there's no saboteur. There was no poison pill. There was nobody in there who was undermining the official narrative, and I beg to differ. Now, they're pointing us back to this 331 error, so-called, admitted by Robert Cerna, but as we'll read it, his declaration is wrong. So his assumption is based on a faulty premise, which invalidates the whole concept. And the lawyer who made the terrible arguments was also afueted out of there. So this whole administrative error thing is just a fake, and we're happy to see that the record is being corrected. Why? Just ask yourself this basic question. Why would some immigration judge at a lower level district court dealing with MS-13 members or gangbangers, why would that one judge's interpretation override two co-equal branches of government? We got three. Two is more than one. So two override the one. The Alien Enemies Act was passed by Congress, gives the president power to invoke it and use it. The President Trump did that. Both of those, he's pulling from the power of both rings of power, both branches of government, which overrides some lower level judge who says that Papusa boy is afraid of pupusas. So we'll come back on that and more. We'll also listen to what's happening here in the White House in particular, because we had this very nice exchange where Caitlin Collins was asking questions. Can you just put him on an airplane and bring him back? Well, we'll listen to the whole thing, and we'll also listen to Stephen Miller himself giving us a breakdown on what's happening here. Very masterfully done, and I'm happy to see somebody taking point on this case and correcting the record on this administrative error crap, because it wasn't. The guy never had lawful status. He was not here on asylee status. Joe Biden let him run around and just run free. But that's not the law. And because somebody came in and enforced the law doesn't mean he suddenly has due process rights. What? Well, you let me be illegal here forever. So why can't I just keep being illegal? Somebody enforces the law and now he's got due process rights or something. But by the way, he did get due process. He had a full proceeding in front of a judge and they appealed it as well. So we're going to come back to that. Then we're going to talk about this kid. This is a wild story. So this kid, his name is Nikita Kassap. Over the weekend, he was arrested for allegedly eliminating his parents with a firearm, took them both out. And then there was this plot to assassinate President Trump. This is what this dude looks like. Guy's like 17 years old, arrested in March, charged with 2 counts first-degree elimination. We'll come back on this because we got our hands on the documents here. And, ooh, boy, there's some Ukrainian business happening in here. Look right here. FBI personnel saw a Telegram direct message from Poma Biktopata, who writes in Cyrillic and has the Ukrainian mobile telephone number. This guy says, how long will I need to hide before I will be moved to Ukraine? What? Oh, gosh. All right, so we're going to come back on that. We got a lot to get to on that one. We'll read through the full thing. Guy's going to pick up and go to Ukraine. And Ryan Ruth was back and forth with Ukraine. So, man, the story just gets stranger and stranger. Those Ukrainians, wild. So we'll come back to that. As you can see, we are jamming, baby. It's a beautiful Monday. I hope that your weekend was outstanding and amazing, and you're here refreshed and restored, and you're accomplishing all the things you set your mind to this week. Very excited you're here. If you're a membo, thank you for that. Thank you for becoming a membo if you're considering it. We had a great members-only stream this morning. Tons of fun. We do some other stories that we can't get to here, and we have a great community. We laugh. We share memes, and it's a lot of fun. So come join us if you're considering it, watchingthewatchers.locals.com, or join up on YouTube. We'd appreciate it. It's a great way to support the show, and we have a lot of fun. Grab some extra content, meet some friends, and we'll see you tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, for the Membo stream. All right, now, without any further ado, let's get into it. The tubes are warm, and it's great to have you here. All right, so the case continues, and let's start right here with this order. President Trump now going toe-to-toe with a federal district court judge, already explaining that Kilmar, the person who's the subject of this judicial order, is not coming back to America. He's a terrorist. Trump has plenary authority through the Alien Enemies Act that was passed by Congress to make this decision that is not subject to judicial review from some unelected judge. Said he's not coming back. He's already in El Salvador. Well, Judge Zinnes issued this order, if you recall, over the weekend, demanding Trump provide updates. Trump provided a couple updates. We'll see if she's happy with them. I don't think she will be. But remember, this is the judge. Her name is Judge Paula Zinnes, and she's from Maryland. She was appointed by Barack Obama. She's a political appointee, no prior judicial experience, was a public defender before she went into private practice, sued the cops, got big fat settlements, took a chunk of the settlement, got rich off of it. And she is in charge of this Kilmar case. This is the Kilmar fella who was not in the country legally at all. There was an order from a lower level district court judge who said that he should not be removed to El Salvador because of the pupusa business that his parents were running, and he was under attack. I don't know why he left his mama's pupusas business or whatever, but he fled to America. Did not have asylum because he was already here for too long without applying for asylum. And he was allowed to run free under Joe Biden. Trump came in, utilized the law passed by Congress, and declared him an alien enemy. So they deported this person. And now the judge says, I want answers, saying you can't withhold him. You can't send him to El Salvador because there was a withholding order from a lower level judge. And you have to bring him back to America, even though he was not in the country legally, right? The only order was that he should not be removed to El Salvador. That was from another judge. But the circumstances underlying that order, by the way, have changed. Nayib Bukele came in, the so-called gangs that were down there that were freaking him out with pupusa attacks are no longer there, okay? So the underlying predicate has been evaporated. But here is what the judge said, just to refresh our recollection, and we'll look at what Trump's responses have been to this. Says, all right, for the reasons discussed during today's status conference, writes the judge, this was last week at the close of the week, said, in advance, this court, Judge Zinnes, and I did over the weekend find a clip of her. This was her speaking on March 2021 Women's History Keynote Address, just for a little flavor, just to spice it up so you can see what she sounds like. Here is the judge.
A newly self-manumitted, brown-skinned woman who could not read or write had the strength and foresight to swear out a warrant for the slave owner's appearance in the Ulster County Court so that she could petition the judge for the return of her son. Sojourner then convinced not one, but two lawyers to help her fight for Peter's freedom. Although the official outcome of the case remains undocumented because the parties settled, Peter returned to New York and was freed ultimately.
Wow, a story that obviously she knows so well. This is such an issue that's so close to her heart, a woman of color getting lawyers and getting healed and all these things. She doesn't even know what the hell the story is. She's reading it from a book or something like that. So that's that judge. Honors mothers' adversity and sacrifice by women, and she's out there giving the keynote, reading from somebody else's book or something. I don't know what it is. Okay, so that's the judge. Now that's who we're talking about, who just granted this order. She said, I am the president now, okay? So just eat it, says the court. Judge Zinnes now directs President Trump to file a supplemental declaration from an individual with personal knowledge about this. You better report to me. I want to know the current physical location. She gave this order. Trump's going to respond. We'll see what he says in response. The current physical location and custodial status of Abrego Garcia. Kilmar is his first name. And what steps, if any, defendants have taken Trump to return to facilitate, okay, what have you done to facilitate, we're going to look for this, his immediate return to the United States? And what additional steps Trump will take and when to facilitate his return. In other words, bring his booty back. Now, Trump made no meaningful effort to comply. No, he didn't. And instead, they complained. We saw this last week. They said this order is unreasonable and impractical. They wanted additional time to give them answers and more. The judge said, well, during the hearing, the court posed straightforward questions. She said, I asked you, where is Abrego Garcia right now? What steps have you taken to return this person back to America. And the response from the counsel was, well, Your Honor, I can't answer these questions. And at times said, well, I don't even have that information. I don't know. I can't answer those things. He's in El Salvador. He's in their prison, not mine. So as a result, Trump's DOJ lawyers could not confirm and thus did not advance any evidence at all, right? When we were last week, we're going, oh, dang, son, that Trump had done anything to facilitate his return at all. So this remained their position even after this court reminded them that the Supreme Court of the United States said that the authority was to, the government had, this court had the authority to require the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return. Now, from this, but also really narrowed that down in the Supreme Court decision, saying, with due deference to your co-equal branch of government, and said effectuate. If you remember, there was the other word in there called effectuate. And the judge can't really do that either, right? So you can't really order them to effectuate anything because then you're the president. It was a really bizarre decision from the court, and it's only going to serve to make this much worse, not better, because both sides are declaring victory. The judge came out and says, I'm affirmed, 9-0. Trump's coming out today saying, no, we affirm, 9-0. You can't tell us what to do. Facilitate? Fine, okay, we'll try to facilitate, like we'll send them a letter or something. Is that what you want? But that's all we're doing. From this court's perspective, Trump's contention that they could never answer these basic questions provides no basis for their lack of compliance. So the judge said, look, so it is hereby ordered that beginning on April 12th, which was over the weekend, and continuing every single day thereafter until this judge says otherwise, Trump shall file before 5 p.m. And several of these filings that we're going to look at were late. A declaration made by an individual that answers these three questions: physical location and status of Abrego, what steps you've taken to facilitate his immediate return. And she's not just like using it interchangeably, like, okay, facilitate, effectuate, mandate, whatever. And what additional steps Trump will take and when to facilitate his return. A follow-up hearing will be scheduled for tomorrow, April 15th, and it's going to be epic tomorrow. So thanks for subscribing and coming back tomorrow, because she's going to be so mad. Now, to the extent that these ACLU gangbang lawyers seek additional relief, they can file their motions. We'll look at it. Now, she also says, foreign affairs, she says this misses the point. You are obliged to comply with court-ordered deadlines. So she just scolded them, right, on the court-ordered deadlines. You must comply with our deadlines. And calling this foreign affairs doesn't justify your lack of compliance. So you can't just say, well, it's foreign affairs, so it's our business, judge, stay out of it. Can't do that. So this was an angry judge. Just give me updates immediately. Now, they got an update. Here was what the court sent in, the Trump DOJ sent in via Senior Bureau Official, which is a great title. See, what kind of official? Senior? Well, what agency? In the Bureau. All right. Well, here you go. Here's the update. And they answered three questions, kind of. They got three paragraphs. Let's see. I, Michael Kozak, under penalty of perjury, say I'm the following. I am Senior Bureau Official of the Bureau of Western Hemisphere Affairs, United States Department of State. Okay. Now, as Senior Bureau Official, I'm a member of the Senior Executive Service responsible for, among other things, coordination of our conduct among diplomatic activities in countries of the Western Hemisphere. Now, before that, I was Senior Coordinator for Afghan refugees in the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration. I've held a bunch of roles since 1971. So the first question is like, who the hell is this dude? Oh, Michael Kozak. Cool. So this dude hops in. He's like, I'll take this one, boys. He says, I'm aware that the instant lawsuit has been filed seeking the return of Kilmar. He uses the actual name instead of just hyphenate or just cutting it off at Abrego, right? It sounds worse if you call him Kilmar. That's why they leave it off. And I mean it. That's why they leave it off. It's bad. From the United States to El Salvador. They want him to come to the United States from El Salvador. Okay. He is El Salvadorian. He is a citizen of their country, not ours. He had no lawful status here. They want him home. So he says, I provide this declaration based on my personal knowledge, reasonable inquiry, and information obtained from other State Department employees. Wow. All right. So this last paragraph better give us answers to all three of those questions. Let's see. It's my understanding, based on official reporting from our embassy in San Salvador. In other words, he's not even talking to El Salvador. He's talking to the embassy there, who's in communication with them, that Abrego Garcia is currently held in the terrorism confinement center in El Salvador. All right. He is alive and secure in that facility. And he is detained pursuant to sovereign domestic authority of El Salvador. Oh, dang. All right. So if we go back to the order, what did the order demand? We had 3 questions. Physical location, got that. He's in El Salvador. Custodial, he's in custody. He's alive, got that. But number 2, have you taken any steps to facilitate his immediate return? No, that's not answered. So that's a no, not answered on that one. No, none. Didn't even say we have not taken any steps. Just didn't answer that. What additional steps for question number 3 will you take and when to facilitate his return? Didn't see anything in there either about that one. So the only thing is he's alive. You're welcome. And he's secure. So stop your crying. He's detained pursuant to El Salvador. So we're not releasing him. He's not coming home. Signed under penalty of perjury by Michael Kozak. Sorry, Judge. That's what you get. So that was on the 12th. And the judge is fuming mad. But what's she going to do? Force them to do something about this? Force them to effectuate the return? The Supreme Court just said you can't do that. Mind your business, Judge. You can facilitate whatever, but you can't order them to effectuate anything because that might be violating the separation of powers. And the 9-0 whatever Supreme Court, everybody keeps saying that it's not very clear anyways because it was a per curiam opinion, gave us no clarity at all. Thank you, John Roberts, for not solving anything. Great. So we're not doing anything. And by the way, they're not saying that this is in violation of the judicial order. This is in compliance with what SCOTUS said. They're saying we're owed due deference. Did you read it? We're owed due deference over foreign policy. It's in the Constitution. That's our prerogative, not yours. You can't have judicial review over our affairs. Otherwise, you're the president. And you're not the president. You're a judge. So stay in your branch of government. And they're responding accordingly. This isn't a flouting of the order. They're just refusing to comply. Her order is unconstitutional. So they sent another update the following day. They said, oh, I guess we got to give you an update every day. So now the 13th comes around. It's Sunday, Palm Sunday. They say, here, Judge, here you go. You want another update? All right, just copy and paste. File, save as. Oh, they had a little bit more here. Let's see what's in here. All right, I am Evan C. Katz, says this person. And that person is different than Michael G. Kozak. We got Kozak and Katz. I had to do a double take. So here's another declaration from another person, Evan C. Katz. He says, oh, hey, by the way, now I'm here. I am assistant director for the removal division with Homeland Security and ICE. Okay, so we got a different person. And this person, quite frankly, feels like a little bit more over the target as somebody who's directly responsible for the decisions. The other guy was senior bureau official. He's like, just there, you know. But here, okay, so I am this person. Now, in this capacity, I'm responsible for leading the division, which is composed of ICE air operations, international operations, removal management. I coordinate 25 ERO field offices to support the removal of aliens from America. Now, I've held this position since December 23. And before this assignment, I was acting director here and deputy assistant here. And I've been with ICE, Legacy INS, since 1997, before they became ICE. Now, I provide this declaration, Judge Zinnis, based on my personal knowledge and reasonable inquiry and with access to records, systems, databases, and more. Now, I'm aware that the incident lawsuit has been filed here about the removal of Kilmar. And I think, is that a typo? I think that might be a little typo there. Now, I'm aware that this court's preliminary injunction issued after Judge Zinnis issued her order saying, bring him home now, that the government sought a stay pending appeal from the Fourth Circuit on the same day and ultimately on the Supreme Court. Then we came back on March 7th. Chief Justice Roberts issued an administrative stay of that order. Okay, she said, fly him home by midnight or else. John Roberts came out before the clock struck 12, issued the stay. Trump didn't have to bring him back. Then we got the bizarre order. On March 10th, the Supreme Court held that the deadline challenged is no longer effective. So there is no deadline because the deadline had come and passed just by virtue of the calendar. And that aspects of this court's injunction needed to be clarified before they could become effective. because what does facilitate mean exactly? We don't know. Now, during proceedings in 2019, this gentleman says an immigration judge upheld Homeland's decision not to grant bond over this person called Kilmar, finding that Homeland's determination that he was a member of MS-13 was trustworthy and supported by other evidence, which we've noted here multiple times. And that is a great post from Will Chamberlain that we've talked about here and reposted once before and communicated many times, right? This was the actual court order that came down that said he's a native. He came in unknown. He was not admitted and paroled, and he was charged with removability. And he was held in custody. He had the whole hearing. He got an appeal. The dude had plenty of due process. So for all those fake news hacks or other Democrats, he can't challenge his removal. What ended up happening is after he was about to get a fuera out of here, he got some other lawyer, and then they filed an asylee request. And then that's when the order came, which was a withholding order that said he can't be removed to El Salvador because his pupusa business. But the gangs that were attacking mommy's pupusas are no longer in operation there in El Salvador. And by the way, there's good argument that that law and that decision is now, first of all, mooted based on the change in circumstances. But in addition to that, can be terminated based on the operation of the other superior laws that were not being considered at the time, which is the Alien Enemies Act, which just got invoked to target that gang specifically. And that was passed by Congress and it executed by the president, giving him additional powers that allows him to do what he's done. So that was always the proper basis for this, right? And that's what he is saying now. Now, I provided this declaration, says this person, and he tells us, and noted even in the proceedings that they failed to present evidence from Abrego to even rebut that assertion. So if this guy wanted to show that he was not a gangbanger, and by the way, they keep saying that, he needs due process to show that he's not a member of this gang. He already had it. He had it in 2019. He had an opportunity to present evidence. He didn't. He doesn't get 55 takes at this. He got an immigration appeal, by the way, upheld the finding when he appealed it. So he's already been adjudicated. It's done. On March 15th, Abrego Garcia, a native and citizen of El Salvador, was removed to El Salvador because that's where he is, a native and a citizen. Although Abrego had an order of removal issued by an immigration judge, I understand that he should not have been removed because the immigration judge had, see that, an order of removal, so he should be removed. Another immigration judge, or the same judge, had also granted him withholding of removal to El Salvador because of pupusas. So he had an order to go. However, I also understand that Abrego Garcia is no longer eligible for withholding of removal. Okay, so the judge at the time said you can't go to El Salvador because mommy's pupusas. In spite of the finding of MS-13, it was a whole separate proceeding. Then Garcia, the status has changed. Trump has come in and said, guess what? MS-13, you guys are gangbangers. Now we're not dealing with this like Joe Biden, where you can just go on parades downtown. And because of your membership, you are now a designated foreign terrorist organization. Now, this dude and many others had plenty of time to self-deport or go make other arrangements for themselves. They didn't. Now he's adjudicated a designated foreign terrorist. That gives Trump the powers to remove him with an independent power that overrides this withholding. He is no longer eligible for withholding under the law. So he is now gone. Now, I have reviewed the declaration of the first guy, Michael Kozak, which was filed in this case yesterday. Now it's that we just read. Now it's my understanding we have no other updates for the court beyond what was provided yesterday. All right. And so let's see. Did they answer really any of those questions at all? So remember, the judge wants an update. Like if you're a teacher and you have to meet a rubric or something, let's see. Did that update answer any of these questions? The second one didn't answer anything. The current physical location in custody, he says, well, nothing's changed from the first one. So I guess maybe that's there. But nope, we're not taking any steps to facilitate his return. In fact, the update from the Trump administration says, we're right, you're wrong. The withholding is invalidated. It wasn't an administrative error to send him to El Salvador. There was no longer withholding because the president, via the Alien Enemies Act, which is the executive branch, plus the legislative branch, which passed the Alien Enemies Act, gave the power to the president to do this. And an immigration judge who was granting him withholding of removal to El Salvador was doing that predicated on another area of the law that's now superseded. And the law allows for it. So he has been removed, and we're not going to bring him back. Now, what steps, if any, are you facilitating his return with? None. What additional steps will you take and when to bring him home to America, his home? He is home. None. No updates from Trump. So when we are back here tomorrow for this hearing, this judge is going to go through the roof, and I can't wait to see it. Now, in addition to that, we also saw that the lawyers for the ACLU gangbangers, they filed for additional relief. They're furious. They're saying yesterday, Trump confirmed that the United States has the power to bring Garcia back. He said, if the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do that. I would respect the Supreme Court. But that's what the Supreme Court said specifically, they said. And so bring him back. That is not what the Supreme Court said, right? Facilitate the release from custody, but also owe the due deference to the executive branch. And they didn't say bring him back to America. Now, the government should be required to comply with the Supreme Court order, and let's see what they're demanding. They say, what you should do is the following. They say, for the foregoing reasons, we want you to order the government, order Trump by the end of Monday today, she didn't do this, to take specific steps set forth to comply with the injunction, order expedited discovery, right? Give them access to a bunch of stuff, which they're not going to give over anyways, and order the government to show cause by Monday at 10 a.m. why it should not be held in contempt due to its failure to comply with the prior court orders. So like they're not getting any of this stuff, which is just going to be great. So the judge can keep digging if she wants to and making her court look even less and less credible. But as we see here, Kilmar not coming back based on the updates provided to the court. So Democrat senators are losing it. This one came over from Mackenzie Frost, posted this as a Democrat senator called Chris Van Hollen. He said he's going down there. He says, Honorable Embassy, I write to urgently request a meeting with Bukele, the president of El Salvador, during his visit to discuss the illegal detention of my constituent called Kilmar. All these Congress people, senators are fighting for this dude. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that he was wrongfully deported to prison to El Salvador. Now, on Saturday evening in a court filing to a federal judge in Maryland, Trump confirmed he's being held down there. But they did not detail the steps that have been taken to bring his return. And again, the Supreme Court didn't mandate he come back to America. I have met with Abrego's wife, mother, and brother. We played a clip of the wife here. She seems heartbroken. As you can imagine, they are extremely worried about his health, safety, and continued illegal confinement, as I am. And they also are wondering when the next fentanyl deliveries will be. I look forward to your response. Sincerely, Chris Van Hollen, U.S. Senator. Amazing. So that happened. Now, here was a little clip of one of the ACLU gangbang lawyers who was there after their gangbang session representing Kilmar. And here's what he sounded like outside the halls of DC or wherever this proceeding was. Maryland. This was from last week, just a quick snippet of what he sounds like.
Information about what they're doing. After the Supreme Court issued that order, the district judge issued a further order clarifying her ruling and explaining that the government needs to take all steps reasonable to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States, and that in the meanwhile, it needs to provide the court with information, specifically 3 pieces of information. 1, where is Mr. Abrego Garcia right now?
El Salvador.
What is his custodial status?
He's in jail.
2, what has the government done so far to try to bring him back?
Nothing.
There were several days
nothing
when the court's order was in effect prior to the Supreme Court entering a stay. And now it's been more than 12 hours since the Supreme Court lifted the stay. What has the government done during that time?
Nothing.
To bring him back?
Nothing.
And then 3, what is the government planning to do to carry out the court's order, which is, again, to take all reasonable steps to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia to the United States as quickly as possible?
Nothing. They're not doing anything. You just read the letters there. That guy was speaking, of course, last week, but he's not coming home as far as we can tell. Now, the president did say if John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett want to do something useful and actually settle this once and for all, they don't want to. Okay. They know Trump's right here. They know he's lawfully right. The dude was not administratively errored out of this country. The dude was illegal here. He had no asylum status here. He had to withhold it. He had a removal order, except withholding to El Salvador. And Joe Biden let him parade around our country for years. Now he's gone. But if the Supreme Court wants to come in and issue an order that wrecks the presidency for all future generations to come, they can do that. John Roberts, you want to come do that? Go ahead and do it. So instead, what they're doing is they're being coy and sneaky about this. And they're like, well, why don't the judge just go down there and facilitate, explain what facilitate means. And the judge is going to come back and say, see, I'm right. Trump's going to come back out and say, see, I'm right. So the Supreme Court, as usual, is being useless in this entire injunction saga. But here was the president on Air Force One.
How does the administration, how do you plan to respond to the Supreme Court ruling and the other courts about the gentleman who was in Maryland who was the El Salvador president?
Is that the one that was not Trent Day Rockwell, but he was MS-13?
Just the one that they've said needs to come in.
No, but was he MS-13? Because I only know about that. I don't know which one. But if the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do it. I respect the Supreme Court.
And the lower court judge as well. He's been asking for
I'm not talking about the lower court. I have great respect for the Supreme Court. So I'm not I'm not totally well versed as to the specific case, but if they said to bring him back, I would tell them to bring him back.
Yeah, but they didn't say that, so he's not coming back. So that's President Trump, and the removal was valid. The Supreme Court knows that too, which is why they're being coy and sneaky about this. But we'll keep our eye on this case. Of course, we're waiting for the hearing in Judge Zinnis's courtroom. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we come back to that one. All right, now we're not done yet here. Now let's follow up on this with the meeting with Nayib Bukele in the Oval Office today, because it was a doozy. President Trump met with President Nayib Bukele from El Salvador. And of course, one of the main questions today was about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the MS-13 gang member who was adjudicated as a risk to the community, was found to be non-bondable and has evidence of being a flight risk based on the fact he doesn't show up to court when he gets summons for his court appearances. But El Salvador was in America now. And of course, people are saying, wait, you have this guy in your custody. Maybe you can release him back to America. And Trump and Nayib had a great conversation about this. We're going to come back and listen to the full thing. But we've also got Stephen Miller, who is now playing point on this. And it's been very great to see him pushing back on the fake hoax narrative that this guy was sent out of our country due to an administrative error. He was not a citizen, and his withholding of removal was superseded by the Alien Enemies Act and by President Trump. The fact that they're unhappy with that change, the fact that this guy was allowed to just roam free around the country without any enforceability, does not give him a due process right against removal when somebody who actually enforces the law comes in and does their job. So Stephen Miller is going to explain what's happening, but let me also show you this, which is the new response from the counter narrative. Roger Parloff, who does a bunch of reporting on the news, is saying that Stephen Miller, who we'll listen to, and his new theory of a Democratic saboteur is false. He says the error was admitted by Robert Cerna. And so let's think about this. We follow the bouncing ball through the chain of custody of information. And when did this dumb story of an administrative error come into the lexicon here in this case? Well, as you can see, it was here, it looks like, March 31st, 2025. This came in the form of a declaration that was submitted by Robert Cerna. ICE acting field office director. Now, he says here, now, ICE was aware of this grant of withholding of removal at the time Abrego Garcia's removal from the United States. Reference was made to this status on internal forms, okay? In other words, and by the way, you can be aware of the withholding and override the withholding. Yeah, no, I know the withholding is there. It's no longer valid. This guy's not eligible for withholding because he's a terrorist. Okay, withholding of removal would be for people who are not elevated to that status. Let's say some people come across the country to make a better life for themselves and their family, or whatever that trademark is that they have, that they keep telling us. They come over, they're not gangbangers, they're not terrorists, they're not drug dealers or murderers who take out Laken Rileys or anybody like that. They come in, maybe their papusa business is actually under attack, and they're just kind of regular old illegals, illegal aliens in our country, just regular old run-of-the-mill illegals. We got like 15 million of them. You know what I'm talking about. They come in, they get picked up. There's a proceeding. They say, we're not going to return you to that country because of this danger. You're a political prosecution victim or whatever the circumstances are. Great. But if you're a terrorist, if you're a designated terrorist, if you're MS-13, if you're Al-Qaeda, if you're anybody, you don't get that same protection, okay? Like, we're not going to give you the same benefit against withholding if you're elevated to a higher status. This guy was. He was already adjudicated MS-13 before by two other judges, and he appealed that too. So his due process is gone. He got plenty of it. And yes, in other words, we can know there was withholding. We don't care. He's now designated a terrorist. He's gone. Withholding no longer applies. So then we get into this paragraph. He says, now this is from the ICE director on 331. Through administrative error, whatever that is, Abrego was removed from the United States to El Salvador. This was an oversight. Paragraph preceding, he says, he was not on the initial manifest of the Title 8 flight to be removed to El Salvador. Rather, he was an alternate. As others were removed from the flight for various reasons, he moved up the list and was assigned to the flight. The manifest did not indicate that he should not be removed, because he should be removed. Why would it say he could not be removed? Yes, he had the order of withholding, but that no longer applies under the law. What the judge was saying and invoking that withholding protection, it's invalid for terrorists. We don't say terrorists don't get to go home. They go. Other people who don't rise to that level maybe can stay, or at least not go back to that same country. So again, others were removed from the flight. He moved up the list. It did not say he should not be removed. Now, through administrative error, he was removed from the United States to El Salvador. This was an oversight, and the removal was carried out in good faith based on the existence of a final order of removal, which he had, and Abrego's purported membership in MS-13, which was adjudicated by a court. Okay, so this administrative error, I'm still not real sure what it was. He was not on the initial manifest, and I think that's the issue, is like his name was not on the manifest. Like it's kind of like an accounting error. Like we didn't track who this person was or where he was at the time, but he was removed to El Salvador. And in my interpretation of that, the removal was valid. Okay. And by the way, so just to be clear on this, I'm not blaming this guy for this insertion of this administrative error language. I would also attribute that to the DOJ attorney who was fired in the immediate aftermath of this case percolating. And you recall that the person who was also in conjunction, who is probably, okay, the way this stuff works, is the prosecutor who is, or the DOJ person who's in this case kind of defending the case. They will go and get the declarations and have the conversations with these people. So there was an attorney who got, or basically is almost fired. He's on suspension, or on administrative leave, rather. You remember his name. His name is Erez Ruvini. And right after this case got started, the acting deputy director said, "You're done." Ruvini didn't follow a directive from your superiors. He was put on indefinite leave on Saturday after questioning Trump and their administration's decision to deport a Maryland man. He's not a Maryland man. He's an El Salvadorian man back to El Salvador 1 day after representing the government in court. Okay. This attorney, whose name is Erez Ruvini, went in there and was not doing his job and was probably poisoning this entire case with this declaration. And so he got fired or is on suspension or on leave. At my direction, every DOJ attorney is required to zealously advocate on behalf of the U.S., said Pam Bondi. Any attorney who fails to abide by this direction will face consequences. Under questioning by a federal judge on Friday, Mr. Ruvini conceded that deportation last month should never have taken place. That's his opinion. Okay, this is the person who inserted that narrative into this whole case. Should never have taken place. What? Why not? It was overridden. The withholding no longer applies. He also said he'd been frustrated when this case landed on his desk. So he was a respected 15-year veteran of immigration, whatever. Tried to persuade judge. Less than 24 hours later, Mr. Blanche, Trump's former attorney, said he was engaging in conduct prejudicial to the client. Mr. Blanche suspended him with pay, cut off access to his work email, blocked him from performing any duties related to the case. So the guy got fired, is excommunicated. Now, the judge in this case, Paula Zinnis, said that you got to bring this dude back and more. So you can see, right, that person was involved in this case during the creation of these declarations. So it's through administrative error. They say he was removed to El Salvador, which I totally disagree with. And the new declaration that we read in the prior segment, which was now sent in by Evan C. Katz, says there's a clear chain for his removal. In 2019, an immigration judge said, no bond. Okay, a judge, no bond. And your decision, the finding that you're part of MS-13 was trustworthy, supported by other evidence. He didn't rebut that during his trial back then. And on appeal, it was upheld. So then his order of removal was no longer valid because of his membership in MS-13. That is a declaration from Evan C. Katz, right? Another person who has enforcement and removal operations experience, assistant director over there. So that U.S. attorney and that other ICE director were in fact wrong. It was an administrative error. He should have been removed. He could have been removed to El Salvador because the judge's withholding is invalid based on the declaration of the Alien Enemies Act, the proclamation issued by President Trump. So all of these narratives are invalid. And you've seen this before, and they're also saying that this is how and this is a problem. I would agree with their criticism here that this is a problem, that this narrative shouldn't have taken hold, right? There's a poison pill that plants the poison seed, and then the seed blossoms and infects the entire case. And Anna Bauer was commenting on this too. So ICE official Robert Cerna submitted it in a sworn declaration saying it was an error, administrative error. The lawyer who's about to be fired, Erez, said it's an error. And then it worked its way up like it was part of the narrative. It was a part of the case. And then Solicitor General John Sauer also attached his name to it when it hit the Supreme Court, give or take. But did he sign off on that? I don't know. As you know, the names are on, the top line signers on basically every document. But it was submitted in multiple filings. The whole thing was a fake narrative. The dude had lawful authority to be removed out of our country. And one person who explains that very beautifully is Stephen Miller. So with that background, let's listen to him explain what this real narrative is now that we figured it out.
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Who wants to go first?
I'll ask, do you plan on ramping up or does the administration plan on ramping up deportations to El Salvador? And how many people
Definitely
do you want El Salvador
I hope.
to take from the United States?
Well, as an example, there are thousands of either trained Nicaragua members left in this country or their affiliates and associates. So obviously some portion of those will be going to El Salvador as part of our effort to eradicate this foreign terrorist organization from the United States. But there's no upper limit to the agreement. We're going to continue to send foreign terrorist aliens to El Salvador as well as to many other countries.
think you were first, I think.
Is the president asking President Bukele today to send Mr. Abrego Garcia back to the U.S.?
Again, to be very clear about this, the Supreme Court ruled that the district court cannot, obviously, compel us to conduct diplomacy or foreign policy with another nation. So they overturned the district court order. And they said very clearly that the district court, it was actually a unanimous ruling, overreached in that ruling. I'm not going to reveal any head of state conversations or conversations at the State Department or the lower level. But the important point that we all agree on is that he's an El Salvadorian. That is his country of nativity and citizenship. He is an illegal alien in the United States. He has no lawful right to be here. He was issued a final order of removal from this country. And so it's up to El Salvador and to the government and the people of El Salvador what the fate of their own citizens is. We can't extradite citizens of foreign countries to our country over the objection of those countries. Obviously, to do that would be a monstrous violation of international law. We can't go into other countries and kidnap their citizens and then take them back into our country. That's up to El Salvador and their own.
To send him back, right?
But it's their own citizen, right? He's in it. This is so. Remember, this whole entire conversation has been wrong from the beginning because nobody was mistakenly deported. Yes, that's like the big fact that all of you, most of you, have gotten wrong. No one was mistakenly sent anywhere. The only mistake that was made is a lawyer put an incorrect line in a legal filing and they've since been relieved of duty. He is El Salvadorian. He is an illegal alien. He was deported to El Salvador. I would welcome anyone here to tell me what country they think we should be sending El Salvadorian illegal aliens to.
Didn't a judge order that he not be deported to El Salvador 5 years ago?
So what you're referring to is an immigration judge. So that's Article 2, not Article 3. So there was no Article 3 restraint on his removal. A withholding order or a cancellation of removal order, first of all, as I'm sure you know, does not eliminate the deportation order, right? We all agree on that. So his status was he's an illegal alien who's been ordered deported, which means he can be indefinitely detained and removed to any other country in the world, right? He can be sent to literally any country on the face of the earth. But the preference, general matter, is to deport someone to their home country, right? In this case, El Salvador. Because he is a member of a foreign terrorist organization, withholding orders don't apply to FTOs for obvious reasons. So if you had an illegal alien, say from Syria, who's a member of ISIS, they can't apply for withholding of removal. So that principle applies here. Furthermore, the gang that he said was going to persecute him, so this theory that he's an MS-13 and there's this rival gang, the 18th Street gang, doesn't exist anymore in El Salvador. So the entire concept is false. But again, when the media talks about the idea that there was a mistaken removal, it implies to, I think, a normal listener, the wrong person was sent somewhere. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador. Where was he sent? To El Salvador. Where does he belong? In El Salvador.
Right? It's
He
different
belongs.
sending someone home and sending them into a prison that they could remain in for
It is
life.
up to El Salvador how to handle the process for their own citizens. Again, what you seem to be asking us to do is to change the government and the laws of El Salvador. So if we deport somebody back to, for example, Syria, should we be closely involved on a day-to-day basis with the Syrian government, detailing that person's life and future?
business.
If we deport, say, 100,000 people back to Haiti, should we open a case file on each of those 100,000 people and ask every day, what's their housing situation? What's their healthcare situation? What might they need? What might they want? Once someone's out of our country, that becomes the problem of their host country, not our country. These people chose to invade us.
Right.
So there's a lot of concern from the corporate media about the invaders, but they chose to invade us. It's our responsibility to return them back to where they came from or another country willing to take them.
I don't think
the Supreme Court.
Is the president going to ask for him to be returned to the United States or not? Like, yes or no?
So first of all, it's not a question for me to answer, but I think that the assumption that underlies the question is what needs to be corrected, which is that there was no mistake that was made. He was sent. So what? Let me ask you. So what do you think would happen to him if he came back to this country? As your understanding of immigration laws, what do you think would happen?
But I'm just
Get it-
asking.
it's important to know.
about whether
You're
or
asking-
not-
you're asking a lot of questions.
He'd run for Congress.
You're asking. You were all asking a lot of questions about this, and you all seem to care about it a lot. So let's see if any of you have researched anything about this issue at all. Can anyone here tell me what would happen to the illegal alien from El Salvador if he came back to the United States? Does
Obama
anyone
would
here know?
invite him over for dinner.
Anyone want to guess? Any of you?
He could be with his family.
Does any of you know the answer to the question? Legally, what would happen if he came back here? Does any of you know?
We arrested.
Do you really believe the Supreme Court?
I'm talking.
Do you really believe the
you
Supreme
need to
Court
stop.
doesn't
I'm talking.
doesn't think you
Does
should be
any of you-
returned? Why was it unanimous?
You're done. Does any of you know the answer to the question? Does any of you? You've been talking about it for days.
All would deport him again now.
He would be arrested.
Yes, and
He'd be
reported.
put in confinement. He would be deported the second time
Yeah.
to El Salvador again, because there's no withholding order for an alien who's a member of a foreign terrorist organization, number one. Number two is the gang that he's a member of doesn't exist in El Salvador anymore. So what you're asking for is to be deported twice. But additionally, if we chose to just pretend that the withholding order was real, he would be deported to a different country. So, for example, he could be deported to Egypt. So I'm just trying to understand, is it your view, in other words, you define a country that would be willing to take a MS-13 member from El Salvador. So I'm trying to understand from you all is, so if he came back and under our laws, he was then deported to Egypt or to Somalia, would you then be saying, great, I'm so glad that you deported him to another country? Is that what you'd all be saying? But do you understand our immigration laws at all? But the premise of your question, the gentlemen, the return, guys, do you know the difference between a deportation order and a withholding order? Do you know the difference?
They don't.
Any of you, please.
No.
Do you?
No.
Well, we're not in the government.
But so you couldn't even spend 72 hours over the weekend learning the distinction, even though you've been writing and talking about it this whole time.
Stephen, we're not going anywhere. On the
Just
gold cards.
Just raise your hand.
You're not
Does
the
any of you know the difference between a deportation order and a
My
withholding
question
order?
is, how do you know that he's a member of the White House?
No, they don't.
Said according to intelligence.
According to, by the way, according to our government and his government.
They
In
don't.
other words, his
But
government has
why not
confirmed
make
based on
that
their own
information
intelligence
public? Why not make
that he's a
that-
member of MS-13. First of all, do you dispute that he's an illegal alien?
What's that?
Do you dispute that he's an illegal alien?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
And do you dispute that as an illegal alien, you have the right to deport him?
Going through the
And he went through the legal process. So
He
I want to
did.
be very.
This is great.
What I'm getting from this conversation, which is educational for me,
Yes, it is.
is
Me
that
too.
not one person in the media knows the difference between a deportation order and a withholding
They
order.
have no
Is
idea.
that a fair statement? You're learning about this all for the first time right now?
Yes, they are.
I guess so. Okay.
Wow.
So
Can we ask
the deportation order means
Wow.
the judge has said he must be deported from the country. He has no right to remain here any longer. He must be removed from the country. So his only options are to be deported to his home country or another country. That's it. There's no other option. He doesn't get to stay here. He doesn't get to live here. He has no future here. He has no right to be here. He's an illegal alien. So when you keep saying return, because you've been spun up by the open borders advocates, you all seem to be operating under the illusion that he would be able to come to the United States and just continue to live here illegally. That's not an option available to him. His only choices in life are to live in El Salvador or to live in another country. That's it. There's no other option, legally or otherwise, because he came to our country illegally. Do you understand that?
Stephen, can I ask as a matter?
They don't. That was epic. Stephen Miller just crushed. Did you hear the silence? There could be a pin drop out there. Can you understand the difference between withholding and being in our country legally? They can't even understand the difference between the two. And an order of removal said he can be removed. The only thing was the withholding to El Salvador, but that doesn't apply to terrorists, obviously, because we don't want terrorists in our country at all. Even if they've got some good excuse. Well, if I go back, I'm going to, whatever. We don't care. You're a terrorist. We're not withholding you in our country. So get out. Stephen Miller hit a home run on that. 10 out of 10. Would watch again. Amazing. So Stephen Miller laying down the ruckus on how this actually works. And what was so beautiful and brilliant there was he, first of all, exposed their idiocy on the legalities of this. No wonder they're so upset. Like, they probably think this dude is a citizen. You deported a citizen to El Salvador. Like, no, he was an illegal who was adjudicated a terrorist in front of a judge and had an appeal on it, and then didn't show up to court when he had traffic tickets. So I'm very, very happy to see this. We're finally getting someone running point on this case and delivering the truth. Now, Nayeeb came in to the Oval Office today. And here is what that sounded like when Caitlin Collins started asking, are you going to bring him back?
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CB.
Thank you, President. Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Mistakenly
Well,
deported.
let me ask Pam, would you ask?
He wasn't mistakenly deported, Caitlin. You should watch this segment. Apparently, she doesn't understand the difference between an order of removal and a withholding to a specific country either.
To that question.
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13
Due process.
and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
No, we wouldn't.
And you are doing a great job.
Thank you.
We're not providing a plane. What?
Wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly.
Okay, give it back to Steve Miller. Someone give him the ball. Okay, you go, Steve. Okay, thanks, Pam. You're doing a great job. Steve, can you help on that?
So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point.
Yes.
As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA.
Yeah, look it up.
That he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States.
Terrorist.
So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States.
Right.
And had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here.
A terrorist.
That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
Yeah.
So you don't plan
But
to
the
ask for
Supreme
anyone
Court's
to get
asking
him back?
to.
Is that
What was the ruling
is that-
in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said,
that was the order.
The ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it per the court can only be directed to him.
I asked
¿Usted lo
President
liberaría,
Bukele,
Presidente
what is
Bukele?
can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed you're not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States?
Pam will
I
give
don't
you
have
your
the power to return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal,
Yeah, I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
Sick. These are sick people.
Tell me about it.
Marco, do you have something to say about
Yeah,
it?
I mean, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
End of story.
The Supreme Court held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago, and they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
It's true. Answered it beautifully and brilliantly. This guy is an El Salvadorian citizen. He was not an American citizen. He had no lawful right to be in our country, already had an order of removal. The basis for his withholding of removal to El Salvador in terms of the facts in El Salvador have totally changed. There's no more pupusa attacks, so he can go help his mom with her pupusas. And the law has changed in America, whereby somebody is now in charge, actually running our country for the first time in a long time, and has declared them to be terrorists under the law that was codified by Congress. This isn't a new executive order that Trump just made up out of something that they screech about, even though he has the power to do it. He's acting under the color of law, under a congressional statute. So it's Congress plus the executive branch overrides an immigration court judge and their withholding from a long time ago. This guy got plenty of due process. El Salvador is now dealing with a gang member according to El Salvadorian judicial policies, and so he can take it up with them. But he's not coming back to America. All right, so that was a banger, man, from both of those three guys, including Stephen Miller. And, you know, Pam Bondi's working hard, offering airplanes. Okay, so anyways, we know where Trump and President Bukele stand. So good stuff there. Now, let's talk about this also insane case from Wisconsin, which is this Trump assassin and maybe a Ukrainian plot that is already underway. And what do we want to queue up right here? Yeah, so here is an interesting one. The teen Trump assassin arrested, documents now released, showing some very interesting things, including a connection to Ukraine, saying this guy, after the assassination, was going to relocate to Ukraine and escape the law. Wild situation happening here. The documents now just being released. This is a photograph of the individual, 17 years old, and was arrested after eliminating his parents, saying there's now an extremist plot that's been busted to eliminate Trump. Now, the documents are also insane, but this guy's name is Nikita Kasep, 17, was arrested in March. Many charges. Court documents say that they're also looking into conspiracy, presidential assassination, use of weapons of mass destruction. And this is now being framed as, I think, a right-wing extremist group by many on the left. And there's much more to the story, obviously. Remember, the prior two assassination attempts were very close to being successful. Trump got shot in the head by Thomas Matthew Crooks. And then when Congress formed their bipartisan committee, they burned the body within about 10 days before anybody could look at it. Then his apartment was professionally cleaned. He had absolutely no social media presence. Looks like that was all scrubbed too. And he was meeting with weird people at gun ranges in various locations. Very strange. Then Ryan Ruth, the golf course attempted assassin, was also seen flying back and forth to Ukraine. And now Ukraine emerges once again. Very strange stuff. So you can see the stepfather, Donald Mayer, and the mother, Tatiana, both found dead inside their home back on March 1st. And this guy's documents are now being publicized as his case is being processed. But let me show you what's going on here. So this was an original search warrant that was drafted. They got their hands on a bunch of stuff. So including this guy's iPhone, a bunch of computers, iPads, all sorts of stuff. They went and gobbled it up. A trail camera, Apple iPads, iPhones, bunch of digital cameras, HP laptops, bunch of stuff, right? So they went, they got the search warrant, got their hands on the documents, but this is what they filed in their application for this search warrant. And this is where we see some of these bizarre connections emerge. Here, this is an affidavit for a search warrant submitted by Justin Mosselman. He says, you know, I make this affidavit in support of a search warrant. Says, I'm a special agent at the FBI, been there since 2019, done a bunch of work on bombs and explosives and more. Now, what I find is probable cause here to get this search warrant for these charges: conspiracy, presidential assassination, and use of weapons of mass destruction, and more. And here's where this begins. Not too long ago, on February 28th, 9:44 in the morning, Donald Mayer's mother, stepfather's mom, JM, contacted the police. You know, I haven't heard from my son in a while. Can you guys do a welfare check at the residence? We're unable to contact the family over there. And we're also learning that the boy, Nikita, hasn't attended high school for about 2 weeks. And the school resource officer also requested a welfare check because the kid has been gone for 2 weeks, missing. On February 28th, two law enforcement officers did a welfare check on the people at the home. The deputy was unable to make contact with the residents and got information from the neighbors. You know, we haven't seen them around recently. So the deputy contacted the work manager for the stepfather, received information. He hadn't been to work since February 13th, but had communicated saying, I'm sick and I'm unable to work. Okay, so stepfather, who's probably dead at this point, has been texting with his boss, probably the son. So then on February 28th at 1:40 p.m., deputies entered the residence through the garage, found mom Tatiana deceased, gunshot wounds in the garage, covered with blankets. Residence was secured. Then the sheriff requested emergency pings on the cell phone for Donald Mayer and Nikita, saying, okay, we got a homicide here. Both phones were located in the area of Laramie, Wyoming. Now, a neighbor immediately to the west of the residence, called PF, provided information to the sheriff that there had been little activity at the residence for 2 weeks. On February 23rd, PF, the neighbor, observed Mayer's black SUV driving away from the residence. So goes from Wisconsin to Wyoming. During a secondary search of the residence, they look around. Donald Mayer was located. So now stepdad is found deceased also from gunshot wounds in the first floor office, also covered in blankets. During the search, they found a receipt for a .357. The firearm was not located in the residence. Based on the information and security footage and more, thinks that they were killed on February 11th at 6:30 and 8:40 respectively. So then they reviewed the ping records on that cell phone from Nikita, the boy's phone. They found it at the world's largest truck stop located in Iowa. The police department also provided security footage of CASAP operating the black Volkswagen Atlas SUV along with a dog. On February 28th, Mayer's vehicle was listed as stolen. CASAP was entered as a missing juvenile in the NICS. At 11:25 that day, the Waukene, Kansas, conducted a traffic stop on the SUV. An unloaded .357 Magnum was observed in plain view, boxes of .357 38 Special, Mayer and Tatiana's wallets, large amount of U.S. currency in euros. 2 cell phones belonging to the deceased were also found. They ultimately arrested this kid for theft of a vehicle and possession of a firearm and cell phone. Now, they then got a search warrant. This is where it gets juicy. Now, during their review, they identified material on the phone related to the Order of 9 Angels. They also found possible usernames for CASAP, including the names Accelerationist 14 and Awoken. So on March 4th, the sheriffs executed a search warrant for the vehicle. During the search, they found a bunch of other things: a pried open safe, women's jewelry, electronics, iPads, cell phones, laptops, 14 Gs in banking documents, hard drives, external storage hard drives, a Simply Safe, home security sensor, and a Y security camera with a micro SD card. Now, the Order of Nine Angels, or Angels, O9A, is a network of individuals, they say, holding neo-Nazi, racially motivated extremist views. The O9A advocates for the use of violence and terrorism to destroy modern civilization and to overthrow governments. So terrorists. So as you can see, it continues telling us, the police looked at the phones. They got the images. They also got a manifesto, and there's a lot of details coming up, about eliminating President Trump making bombs and explosives and other terrorist attacks. They also looked at the Telegram messages. Between February 14th and the 24th, messages in Russian were identified from phone notifications and translated. Says, reply to them all and say, you got sick. Drag them to the basement, were these messages. The sheriff's review of the security camera and the micro SD card also revealed footage that included lighting what they believed were scented candles, right, to cover up the dead body smell of his executed parents, and rummaging through a desk while near a mound of blankets and pillows covering the body. So now they talk about this dude's ideology. They say on March 7th to March 8th, a preliminary review of the device said the following. Here are the following conversations. It's between this person called Awoken and Mystic Thesis. Awoken says December 6th through 8th, 2024. So for timeline context, Trump has won the election. He's going to be sworn in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, soon. Says, you know, it's kind of interesting how I told this girl best friend about how I follow O9A teachings and whatnot. She was pretty chill about it. I feel like most people would freak out. How about you? Does anyone in real life know you're into O9A, Charlie Manson? Well, they know. Charlie Manson? Well, they know. My parents don't know. They would take away my phone if they did, especially since last year the FBI visited. LOL. The last year the FBI visited? Huh? Feel like you're doing a great job here, son. Here are some more bullets. Trump. Going for Trump? Here's some more bullets for you here, son. Get out there and have some fun with it. Mystic Thesis says, my parents know. The FBI interviewed the case of family in November 2023 for unrelated internet IP activity. Yeah. All members of the family denied the IP activity. Agents were allowed to view devices and internet history, found no corroboration of the alleged internet activity. Yikes. Mystic Thesis says, my parents know. Awoken says, are you over 18? Because I'm not. Thus, they still have control to take my stuff away. Yeah, me neither. And your parents don't care that you're under? Me neither. So who is this? So it seems like Awoken is probably him. And they're talking. Then Nelius says to Awoken, hey, dude, do you know any Telegram group where Niners and Drex can interact and exchange info? Sorry, no, I'm mostly an NSWP crew, Telegram groups, LOL. Well, if you do find any, it'd be nice if you tell me, says Awoken. What's WP? WP is white power. Oh, white power, cool. Do you know any O9A Telegram groups? You mean any O9A Telegram groups? Yeah, typo. Do you know why? He says, do you know any? Yeah, typo. Oh, not a group, but a channel. You can find documents there. Okay, send it to me. Here's the link. Can you send me the link to the account? It says I can't access the message. How can I do that? Wait a sec. Okay, here's mine. Accelerationist number 14. He's Awoken. This is the attempted assassin. Okay, I sent a message. So then Telegram message, January 21st, 2025. Trump is now in office. The assassin says, well, what country do you think will get the blame for this? He says, Russia will be blamed for it. This is the goal, to blame Russia. Oh, well, when the time comes for me to send my manifesto to you so that you can spread it online, should it be a PDF? What format's best for you? Do you like a Google Doc or should it be a PDF? What do you want? Also, you won't anyhow change or modify or the manifesto. He says, actually write it on a piece of paper and take a picture of it. So this is an unknown person probably, I don't know, CIA or Zelensky. Maybe it's Zelensky's best friend. Zelensky's over there. Yeah, just write it down. We'll blame Putin on it. FBI personnel performing a preliminary review also saw images of a 3-page document that says, accelerate the collapse. Now, the images, which appear to be screen grabs of a document that was on the phone, were created on February 28th. The document appears to be a manifesto by accelerationists. In the messages with the unknown user, above the paragraph, calling for the elimination of President Trump in order to foment a political revolution in the U.S. to, quote, save the white race from, quote, Jewish-controlled politicians. The third page of the document contained images of Hitler. Yes. Says, okay, Hail Hitler, says this, not me, says the document. The white race, hail victory, says the document. Says excerpts are here, right? He writes some other stuff that you can read. And he says, why though with Trump? Here's what he writes. He says, it's clear that Jews control all the white countries, and it's clear that they promote white genocide and degeneracy. This, for the white race to survive, it is necessary to accelerate the collapse of the countries. Jewish-occupied governments must fall. The white race cannot survive unless America collapses. Okay, so America needs to collapse because the Jews are in charge, is what this guy says. Now, as to why are they taking out Trump? I think it's obvious. By getting rid of the president and perhaps the vice president too. Wow. That is guaranteed to bring in some chaos. And not only that, but it will further bring into the public the idea that eliminations are accelerating the collapse are possible things to do. Wow. Now, if you want to say that you aren't capable of committing these acts in the manifesto, this is perfectly fine for now. The next best thing you can do is to tribe and train, make connections, join white conscious martial arts clubs, because once America collapses, there would have to be a network that can take its place. Okay, and just to be ultra clear, I disavow all of that. We're just reading it for completeness so that you can see what is happening here, right? What's going on. So he continues. He's talking about James Madison. He's talking about, I guess, some other bomb instructions, talking about a revolutionary system here, and white race and white collapse and all the things. So you can read the full manifesto there if you'd like. But they then say these are NVEs. Okay, so this is the FBI guy. These are NVEs. We know what these people are. They say they use social media. They're trying to commit violence. They demand things. They harm animals. They do a bunch of bad things. And historically, they have targeted certain people threatening violence and more. Now, these networks use various monikers to identify themselves. They write manifestos. We read it. Now, the FBI personnel performing this review saw an image with information of using drone attacks as well. Now, the information contains directions on how to extend the range of a drone attack by using repeater drones and ways to avoid detections, like making a drone from a kit rather than commercial off-the-shelf brands. They also use small droppers to drop explosives or Molotovs, very strong poisons. They also say, don't bring a cell phone with you when you're going to do these attacks. Here's where the Ukrainian stuff comes in. Now, FBI personnel performing the preliminary review also saw a Telegram direct message conversation with this person called Puma Biktobahu, who writes in Cyrillic and has the Ukrainian mobile telephone number, what? At this address, +380. Now, in the conversation, the accelerationist called Kasep says, how long will I need to hide before I will be moved to Ukraine? What? 1 to 2 months before they come and pick him up? Also, I probably should brush up on my Russian because I can understand just fine, but speaking is harder, LOL. So while in Ukraine, I'll be able to get a normal job and have a normal life? Question mark? What? Even if when it's found out I did it, I can do all of this in Ukraine? Oh, do the other 10 people also have similar beliefs to I? 10 people? So first of all, who is he talking to on the other end of this? Or are they different? Are they different than me? Assuming that my parents won't leave, remainder of the message is cut off. Wild. Now, FBI personnel performing the review also saw Telegram direct messages with Angel of Death is this username that contain the following messages from Kasep. Says a drone with a dropping mechanism. says, yeah, I still have to ask someone regarding what should be the carrying capacity of the drone, unless he told you already. Anyway, yeah, so the drone would drop a bomb, he says, with nuts, bolts, and needles. So I'll need all that. Angel of Death is responding, says the total amount will be $1,200 to $1,500 in payment by ton. BTC USDT. Bike waiting time 7 to 10 days. The IED 2500 model is reserved from you. Do you confirm the purchase? Yeah, I'm aware you will only start working once I've paid you, so I'll text you when I can pay. That includes the headphones as well. Quality one to protect the hearing from gunshots, like a 357, just making sure. What's your Bitcoin address? Just making sure. All right, so once the transfer is complete, I'll be able to pick it up. Is it just the drone with the dropping mechanism or also explosives? How much will 200 wheels cost for this bike? So they then perform a preliminary exigency review and also saw direct message conversations with an individual called Forrest, who writes in Cyrillic that contain messages to obtain a different license plate and coordinates along with driving directions from a current location in Southwest Wyoming through Kansas to a location at Pumpkin Center, Oklahoma. Like, this dude has a handler moving him around. Additionally, username Alexandra KSAP state Alexander says, and then from there to California, it's 30 hours. You think I'll have enough time? FBI personnel performing the analysis also saw images credited with his with Mayer, the dead stepfather's credit card, PNC Bank and others, armed forces and more. All of his licenses he's got his hands on. Then they interviewed a classmate on March 10th. The classmate said, yeah, this dude was nuts. He would send gore videos and war images put to Russian music via Snapchat. So all like the Ukrainian videos, he's like texting all of his classmates around it. He told the classmate he was going to eliminate his parents once I get a gun. He later told the classmate that he would befriend someone with a gun, steal the gun. Said he was in contact with a male in Russia via Telegram, and they're going to overthrow the government and eliminate Trump. Said they saw 10 consecutive attacks in the news. If you saw it, it would have been me. In some, they say, this dude wrote a manifesto. He was in touch with other parties about his plan to eliminate Trump, and he paid for, at least in part, a drone and explosives. The killing of the parents also appeared to be an effort to get financial means and independence. They got their hands on a bunch of the devices, all of these devices, computers, laptops, digital cameras, home security cameras, cell phones, the vehicle, thumb drives. Look at all these cell phones, iPads, laptops, a lot of tech. Kid was teched up. Also, based on knowledge and experience, says there's also removable memory. And there could be stuff on Internet of Things and digital video recorders and more. So we want to look at the hard drives. So that's why we need it. So I need to look at their cell phone devices and look inside. And thank you for your permission. This is the property that we're going to search. Judge, with your permission. And I'm sure there is a lot more coming. Okay, so that's what we knew before this search warrant occurred. Now they're going to look in the files, and there's going to be a lot more there. So an absolutely insane story. My question, of course, is who's on the other end of that phone? And this is not abnormal. Thomas Matthew Crooks was a young dude too, who shot and hit President Trump in the head, in the ear. And Ukraine and their fingerprints were all over Ryan Ruth's case. This is to set up to make the Russians look bad. This is also an attack on the Jews and more. And so this is just filled with juicy bits. And I think it's appropriate to question everything that's in this document in terms of what his motives were or what his actual end game was, because he sounds like a totally sick person who's being used in an operation, probably just like Thomas Matthew Crooks was, probably just like Ryan Ruth was. And so they just bundle everything up into one little story, and it just checks all the boxes, doesn't it? All the boxes, just perfect. So we'll continue to be skeptical about this, but there is now a pattern emerging with these so-called assassins or these attempted assassins, and it's getting wild out there. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for joining.
Accused of killing.
Here's what Fox News said in the report. Let's see if they mentioned the Ukrainian angle.
Accused of killing his parents as part of a convoluted plot to then assassinate President Trump and overthrow the U.S. government. Garrett Tenney has more on this bizarre development story in Chicago. Garrett, hello.
Yeah, Bill, it really is wild. This 17-year-old apparently wanted to throw the country into chaos by assassinating President Donald Trump. And to do it, he was willing to kill his own parents. According to the FBI, Nikita Kasich killed both his mom and stepdad back in February to help him get the money and autonomy he needed to carry out his plan. When police arrested the teen, he had $14,000 on him, a gun, as well as a manifesto on his phone about killing the president, making bombs, and carrying out terrorist attacks. The FBI says the teen paid in part for a drone and explosives that he planned to use and which he had talked to others about online, including a man in Russia. Court documents state he later told classmate that he was in contact with a male in Russia via Telegram, and they were planning to overthrow the government of the United States and assassinate Trump. Kasich told the classmate that when they saw 10 consecutive attacks in the news, it would have been him. Detectives also allegedly found messages indicating that the teen planned to leave the U.S. for Ukraine after carrying out the planned assassination. A search of the teen's phone allegedly turned up ties to a satanic cult that espouses white supremacist and neo-Nazi views. He is already facing a long list of charges, including murder and theft. Additional charges could be filed now as well. His next court hearing is May 7th.
Wow, bizarre. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely bizarre. And he'll apparently get a job in Ukraine, just doing whatever Ukrainians do over there these days. So we'll keep our eye on this one, see if there's any more releases now that that search warrant seems like it was granted, executed, and they've got their hands on how many iPads are in there. Who was this guy talking to? Was it the same guy talking to Thomas Matthew Crooks? Hopefully we'll find that out. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, my friends. Well, it has been a beautiful stream today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just catching up here, we had 3 great segments we went through today. First of all, we talked about Judge Paula Zinnes. And Judge Paula Zinnes was a Barack Obama appointee who has been demanding President Trump bring back Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is an MS-13 adjudicated gang member, according to a federal an immigration judge and a court of appeals said, you're gone. So he was properly removed. We explained why Trump is not responding to what the judge is demanding. Judge Zinnes issued an order saying, I want a book report from you every single day that answers these 3 questions. Where is Abrego? What are you doing to return him? And what else are you doing to return him now in the future? So Trump responded with 2 declarations saying, this dude is gone. He's in custody in El Salvador, and he is not coming back. He is detained pursuant to sovereign domestic authority from El Salvador. They have the power over him, not us. And this declaration from Evan C. Katz explains the lawful power that they had to do this. When he was designated a terrorist, the order of withholding of removal to El Salvador became invalidated because it doesn't apply to terrorists. And so he is now gone. So we saw that they're very unhappy about this. They're suing in Colorado. They're also going to be back here tomorrow for a hearing. And so we can't wait to see what the judge says about that. President Trump and Kilmar's attorney both spoke about this, and we got to listen in on that. Then we went through and debunked, along with the help of Stephen Miller, this fake idea that there was an administrative error in the removal of Kilmar. In fact, the attorney and the person who introduced that narrative were not making admissions about the removal to El Salvador per se. And the attorney who made that decision was actually put on administrative leave for not putting forward the proper argument, which was that there was no longer withholding. And now Stephen Miller came out, properly corrected the record, and prior filings had that embedded in there, but it's just not accurate. And we're happy to see that that attorney who was responsible for that language is now gone. And so we got an update on who that was. The DOJ placed him on leave. His name is Erez Ruvini, And what's interesting is I could not find a picture or hardly any information about this dude, another DOJ person who's been around for 15, 20 years, hiding in the shadows and the gutters the entire time. So we talked about that. Then we listened to Stephen Miller explain in great detail how this works and educate the media to their faces. And they needed it. So thank you, Stephen, for doing that. And also, we listened to Trump and Nayib Bukele saying, we don't want a terrorist. Nayib, do you want a terrorist? I don't want a terrorist. Mr. President, do you want a terrorist? We're not taking him back. You can say, no one wants him. So he's staying in custody where he belongs. And we got to go through the latest on this attempted Trump assassin who is named Nikita Kasep, 17, took out both his parents, stepdad and mom, eliminated them, fled to Wyoming or Iowa somewhere. And we read through the documents. Strange stuff, alleged neo-Nazi, talking with Russians, hanging out with Ukrainians, going to move over there, apparently doesn't like Jews, and wants to take out President Trump and all of the American government. So that's who that is. But we read through it. We still don't know who's on the other end of all these phone calls, but maybe we'll get to the bottom of it. And so it has been a beautiful stream, my friends, and happy Monday. I hope your weekend was incredible. And I hope your week is going to be even better as you tackle all the days ahead. I'm excited for this week. It's going to be fun. Tomorrow's going to be lit with that hearing. But now, my friends, let's see what you have to say about this. And thank you for being here. Thanks for supporting our work. Thanks for becoming members and sending in these amazing super chats. You guys are awesome. Let's see who is here on the day. Donut clipping for us. Thank you, Donut. Oh, we got some pupusas here. I know that sounds risky, but I can put these on the screen. Hey, it's Monday. It's Sleepy Cat Monday. Womp, womp. Get up. We got a country to save, kitty. Hey, oh, it's Tony Hey Munkets. Hey, Tony Hey Munkets. You rock. Thank you for bringing in 5 new members, Tony Hey. Look at this. We got Lambda Man is here. Ron Hastings, what's up? Just Mike is here. Jay Liebgott and Dark Insider in the house, courtesy of Tony Hey Munkets. Tony Hey Munkets, you rock. Thanks for doing that. Hey, Steve Bear's dad is here. Good to see you, Steve Bear's dad. New members. Grab the members only morning stream from this morning. It was fun. We talked about Trump's immaculate health and other things. Steve Bear's dad, Spuds, saying, hey, thank you for hitting the like button. If you're out there, if your thumbs work, we'd appreciate it. Only if your thumbs work. All hail Tarpon Springs Tyrant. Membo for 20 months says, Reese, the salt is getting deep, Rob. Yeah, Reese, the salt is getting deep. Yeah, they are. This judge is going to be salt overflowing. Once you open those courtroom doors tomorrow, salt everywhere. One old guy's opinion said, I said this last week. The IJ and BIA found that he is MS-13 member. The administration made MS-13 a terrorist group. So Numbnuts Kilmar is an IA and is a terrorist. The judge can go pound sand. Yeah, I think that's probably what it's going to come down to. This judge is going to throw a temper tantrum. But Trump's not going to bring this dude back. Why would he? One old guy's opinion is here. Oh, I got a sneeze percolating. Don't do it. I'm like Kamala. Do not come. All right. It abided though. One old guy's opinion says, it was answered that it was under the authority of El Salvador. No U.S. citizen or SCOTUS has any authority in El Salvador citizen with the sovereign borders of El Salvador. Yeah, it's their country. It's not our country. They can deal with their terrorist gang members on their own accord. We don't want to interfere with that. One old guy's opinion says inferior district court judge Zinnis does not have the authority to make any sovereign country send illegal aliens back to the United States. The arrogance is sickening. Go pound sand, judge. We're going to see what she does tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. Thank you for the nice donos, one old guy. We appreciate you. And for the great questions. Kathy Painchild in the house. What's up, Kathy? Good to see you, Kathy. Thanks for becoming a member. We got this old guy says, Dear Judge, we facilitated an inquiry and were informed that the sovereign nation of El Salvador is currently effectuating the continued incarceration of Mr. Abrego Garcia. Thank you. Have a nice day. Yeah, that's what you got to get. You just fax the same thing in every day. Just fax it in. Make a bunch of copies, fax it in. Probably set up an autoresponder, AI, newsletter. Just send it in every day, same thing. G-Man, you should really rephrase the term mommy's pupusas. Well, that's what this whole case is about. Mommy's pupusas, he had to flee his country, come to America because his mom was under attack or something, which is not a good thing for a son to do. I mean, I couldn't live with myself if I abandoned my mother's business, and he abandoned his mommy's pupusas. Steel Manning says, I love that Trump proposed exile for major crimes. You mean of U.S. citizens? Yeah, we start to get into a little precarious position on that one, but I think he's joking about that. Hey, pupusa is a thick griddle cake or flatbread from El Salvador. Yeah, and apparently they kill each other for him. That's why he had to flee the country, because one gang was taking out the pupusa street corners. Those are my pupusas. No, those are my pupusas. In El Salvador, it's been declared a national dish. Okay, here's an image of a pupusa. Okay, let me just make sure. Okay, this is safe. I can show this one. All right, these are pupusas on the screen. Corn or rice, fillings, meat, fish, cheese, and veggies. All right, I don't know if they're any good. They must be good because they're murdering each other down there. One old guy says, the president of El Salvador said in the Oval Office for the judge to go pound sand today. Did he say that specifically? I don't know if he said that specifically, but if he did, that's a great idiom in English that we like. Yeah, go pound sand, because it doesn't really mean much of anything. It's like it's not going to do anything. Brian Bishop, do Kilmar's pupusas bring the boys to the yard? Because their fentanyl is better than yours. Their fentanyl is better than yours. Paul Hoffman, what's up? Send Kilmar to Guantanamo and everyone wins. Well, I think that is another solution too. And I'm actually surprised they haven't done this. I think I mentioned this last week when I was, you basically say to Kilmar, and I think Trump could even use this as a political tool. You could just say to Kilmar, hey, do you want to be in El Salvador in the CCOP prison, or you can go to this other country who will accept you, but you'll be in their prison? Like, which one do you want? Their prison might be better. It might not be better, but you can go there or you can stay here. So pick one. His attorneys are going to tell him not to sign anything. But even if you made it attractive, you're like, you'll have your own cell. I mean, I'm pretty sure you'll have your own cell if you go. Then if he doesn't sign anything, then you just say, well, we gave him an option. He wants to stay there. We said, well, he's not coming back to America. So El Salvador has another country that they can work with, on him. And honestly, I think that if you see a deal, it would happen after today, after the Oval Office meeting, because Trump can then say, I had a conversation with Bukele, and Bukele came out and agreed to do this. Okay, so like if Kilmar's moved or something happens, I think it's Bukele. He just says, I decided to be magnanimous here and get rid of this. So I just sent this dude to Colombia. And he's in Colombia in jail there. And he agreed to the transfer. He's going to have a much better cell there. He's not coming back to El Salvador for 20 years. Then the whole issue becomes moot, I think. But again, even Stephen Miller pointed out the media. Are they even upset about the withholding to El Salvador, or are they just mad that he's not in America? I think it's the latter, because they don't understand the distinction between the two. So I think that would moot a lot of this. Just say, okay, well, he's not in El Salvador anymore. He's in Venezuela. He's in Colombia. He's in Guatemala. He's in someplace else, or in Guantanamo. But if he's in Guantanamo, then he's in U.S. jurisdiction, and then the judge can order him back. So Trump is like, it's hot potato now. Okay, Trump is never going to have any sovereignty or control over this dude ever again, because he's already anchored that in. So if anything happens, it's going to be Bukele does it out of his own, magnanimity. Knox is here, says, happy Monday, all. These look kind of like raw pancakes. Gangs like these. Apparently, the dude had to flee because his business was under attack. They were getting the gang members were like, we're here for lunch. Mom's like, you were just here for breakfast. He's like, well, we're here for lunch. Well, I can't keep feeding you gangbangers. And so it's a whole thing and civil war. And anyways, it's back under control because Bukele's in charge. Hey, G-Men. It's so nice having a president with a testicular fortitude not to follow unconstitutional laws or rulings. Is him not following unconstitutional laws and rulings part of the take care clause? Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I think that there's this tension between the two, like in the Constitution. So you might say Congress has to fund things that are necessary and proper, and the president has to take care. So, and there's a balance there. So what happens when Congress is funding things that are not necessary and are not proper? Does the president, in the taking care of the country, have to execute laws that are not necessary and not proper under constitutional prerogative? I would argue no. I would say no. That's a check on Congress. And if Congress is unhappy about that, they can impeach the president. That's their check on the president, or overrule a veto or whatever. But yeah, I would say that the president doesn't have to enforce unnecessary or improper laws. That's a strong executive. And if Congress doesn't like it, they can check it. But the president doesn't have to just do everything. Like if they're like, we're going to fund our enemies, which we are in many cases, literally funding America's enemies. Like, why does the president have to abide by that at all? I don't think he does. Well, and it's a check. It's in the Constitution. They're separate but equal. That's separate but equal. One old guy, and if they don't like it, they can impeach him. So I get so tired of Congress crying about all this. He's not following the law. Do something about it then. One old guy says, give the judge the video of the El Salvadorian president to go pound sand. We ain't letting the MS-13 terrorists go. There's a lot of sand pounding going on, and it's going to be enjoyable to watch. Thank you, one old guy. Philip Coggins is here. Philip, what's up? Says, bring the judge to the White House. Give options for the military invasion of El Salvador. Let her give the orders is the only solution. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, okay, Judge, here's our battle plan. We've got 3 divisions located here. We're going to cross the Gulf of America at dawn, all the things. Brian Bishop says, show on your pupusas where Trump hurt you, Democrats. Show us on this pupusa. Right here. Oh, I know. It's going to be okay. Here, let's give it a kiss together. Hey, chat with me. Rob, this administration needs you. You explained so well that even Caitlin could understand. Well, I got to say, man, I was inspired by Stephen Miller. I'm like, that looks like fun. Just to go out to the media and just say, okay, we're going to do a little legal education here. All right, morons, listen. And just go through it. I could bring back the mind maps, and I could show them on the mind maps. Here's an order of withholding of removal. Here's an order of removal. They're different. Voice of the people, what's up? Hey, okay, everyone, like this if you think Rob should join us on Off Label sometime soon. Maybe after our Rumble only cut. I'm down to join you, Voice. I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Having our first members only stream this weekend. That would be fun. Yeah, I'm down. I'm sure I'll be having some time. I was traveling a little bit last week. This week, I've got another event coming up. It's just, I'd love to hang out with you. I know I keep saying that, but we'll find a time. Thank you for being so accommodating. One old guy says, media are talking brainless heads with expensive university degrees to be on TV. No better than an activist actor, just like Collins, an ill person, from one old guy's opinions on the tubes. And I was saying, what's up to Sean? What's up? Potentially criminal Sean is in the house. He is on YouTube right next door. So make sure you go give him a follow. Does great work covering a lot of the same stuff here. Says, so we bring Kilmar and all the trendy arugula guys back, give them a hearing, and then still afuera them. We know they'll still keep being regardless. Yeah, they will. They'll complain constantly. Because I don't think it is ultimately about this particular person, right? They're all saying that he's a loving father who just wanted to be an electrician or barber or whatever it is. And we got to bring him back because it's about him. I just don't think so. I think it's about trying to catch Trump in something. That's what all these lawsuits are ultimately about. Trying to create a wedge whereby there's a legal error, like an administrative error. And then it's like sharks in the water, man. They smell blood in the water. Oh, administrative error. Bring him back. And Sean's an attorney too, so he knows. Soon as that admission was made, they're just like chum in the water. So, but you're right. The dude has no lawful pretense to be here, and they're just looking for stuff to whine about. Thank you, Sean. Subscribe to Sean's channel. G-Men, Pam's DOJ just charged a man for violating the pistol brace rule, the one that was vacated by the courts, as well as possession of an illegal SBR for the same weapon. Any idea how one firearm can be both a rifle and a pistol at the same time? I don't know. Probably have to get on an airplane to El Salvador, and Pam can send one to pick us up. We'll have to talk about it on an airplane. Maybe she can answer those questions for us. One old guy says, go pound sand, Judge Zinnis. Thank you, one old guy, for that one, my friend. Many of them. We got Will Crump says, will this case have to go back before SCOTUS since this judge is being so recalcitrant? Good word. and dismissive of what SCOTUS actually said in the 9-0 ruling. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what SCOTUS is going to do. Like, SCOTUS might just say, we made our ruling, and that's the end of it. So the judge can just spin her wheels, and Trump can just, like, the problem with what SCOTUS did is both sides declared victory. It gave us no clarity on anything. Trump's declaring victory, judges declaring victory, gangbang ACLU lawyers are declaring victory. So everybody, I think, can just stand firm, dig their heels in, and nothing can change. And if the Supreme Court is okay with that, we'll see how far the judge wants to escalate it. In other words, like, if this judge wants to hold Trump in contempt, and this might percolate back up, but maybe not. We'll see. Yeah, it's kind of stalled out right now. We're going to see what happens with this judge tomorrow. It's weird. Knox, they should just deport him to Somalia or maybe Syria. There's no papusa threats there, I bet. Yeah, there's got to be papusa safe havens around this world. I mean, it's a big world. He can go to a papusa-friendly environment and start his own papusa business. Thank you, Knox. Sheila Poo, president of El Salvador, said not sending a terrorist to the U.S. Okay, it's case closed. We're not taking a terrorist. He's not sending a terrorist. So we'll see you tomorrow, Judge. See what you say. Brian Bishop says Kilmar Garcia Everdeen needs to be put in the Hunger Games in the Hollywood film. May the papusas be forever in his favor. Mockingjay Whistle. I'm not super familiar with those books or the movies, but I think it's pretty brutal, right? And so some people might say he's kind of in Hunger Games there, down in that terrorist center, in the terrorist CCOT center. However, they've said he's not going to be abused. He's not going to be harmed or injured in any way. And we actually do want due process, and we do support people having process under the law. He did. And now he's being dealt with according to his people. So if they have Hunger Games or some version down there, that's El Salvador's business, not ours. Thank you, Brian. What's up, Bezzy? Yeah, you did great, Pam. Hey, Steven, can you clean this mess up, please? Maybe the verdict is still out on Pam. Gold stars for her, though, from BZ. Well, that's what it felt like. She's like, well, we could send an airplane to pick him up. Everyone's like, hey, what? Cut it. We're not sending an airplane to anybody, Pam. Sheesh. Steven, fix this. He's like, all right, he's not coming back. All right. All right. What's up? Hey, old lady. Hey, we will. Please pray for my son's healing. Prayers out for old lady coming down from high above on this very holy week. What's up, old lady? Hopefully your son gets well quickly. And we're sending prayer and healing energy to your household. Thank you, old lady, for saying that. Hey, chat with me. What's up? This one came out from Trump. Thank you, chat with me, for flagging it. It says, moments ago, the illegal criminal who was allowed in our country by Joe Biden was convicted of the heinous murder of Rachel Morin. Rachel was a beautiful mother of 5 from Maryland. Her life was taken. The fake news should focus on this. We will deport illegal murderers and criminals and make America great again. Yeah, and I think that was back. Yeah, that was back in June 2024. I was looking for a timestamp on that, but thank you for that. Yeah, where's the due process for them? What's up, Beth C? Thank you, Beth, for becoming a supporter. We'll see you on the Membo streams. Looking forward to those. Hey, one old guy's opinion says, is the Azov regiment and 09A connected? Not a hard to make that hypothesis. Oh, yeah, that's true, right? And remember, yeah, there's a bunch of talk about the Nazis in Ukraine and about, the remnants of some movement there. Maybe that's exactly what it was. One old guy says the official language was Russian while Ukraine was the USSR. That is why. Because in many places in Ukraine, they speak Russian. Yeah. What's up, Greg Sherman? Good to see you, Greg. Thank you, Greg, for becoming a membo. We'll see you on the membo stream. And grab the stream from this morning. Stacy Milliken says, I have to know, are you using your mouse to underline words? Because I'm impressed at how straight your lines are. Mine would never. Thanks for what you do. No, baby, this is all trackpad right here. Your boy's trackpadding it up right here, baby. Well, we've done a lot of underlining here, okay? So once you do a few years of streams of underlining documents, I think your skills get better. That's pretty funny. I didn't even notice that. I mean, sometimes they're pretty rough. It kind of depends. Although those are pretty straight right there. Hey, those are pretty straight. Yeah, that's pretty good right there. I didn't even notice those. That's almost damn parallel. Whoa. All right, that's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to have to pay closer attention to those. All right, so what's up? Thank you for that. That's a funny comment. Hey, what's going on? God bless America. Hey, love your show. Thank you for the what's really important content. God bless America. Thank you for having a great username. God bless America. God bless you. Thank you for the nice show, for the nice dono, and for coming by. This is important stuff. I think we're doing good work together, and I appreciate you supporting us here. Thank you. God bless America. Here's one from More Here. Gimme more here. We got Battle Elf is here. We got 5 membos coming in. Linda G is here. We got 2 Tim 3, welcome. Land That I Love. We got Greg Silverado, gifted membos courtesy of More Here. Welcome aboard, new friends. And thank you, More Here, for bringing them in. Hey, Tony, hey, gifted a sub over on the Rumbles, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, Tony, hey, for doing that. Welcome, DeWitt. Just got one of those. Rick Donner over on Locals says he is a citizen of El Salvador, illegally entered the U.S. He was sent back. End of story. A U.S. district judge cannot order El Salvador to do anything. I agree. And it's going to be fun to watch her spin her wheels like, get him back here for tomorrow. It's going to be epic. Tony, hey, what's up? Gifted a membo to Frida Speech. Welcome aboard, Frida Speech. Great to have you. Quixote, hey, 8 months as a member. 1 more month to go. We'll have a new baby here. Says 1 more month to go before our huge event. We'll have a new baby here. Quixote, a new watcher baby coming up soon. Thank you, Quixote, for being here for so long. Hey, NY says, thought about this case a lot. He had 6 extra years. He was an MS-13 gang leader. He's probably hurt or killed many in his years in the Bows. Yeah, we don't know. What did he do? What did he do back in his homeland before he had to flee? One old guy says, a signature on the IA on any immigration or incarceration document don't mean a freaking thing. All we put down is IA refused to sign. Yeah, and that happens, with traffic tickets too. You refuse to sign it, they just say served. Served. Here you go. Rick Donner, he was deported to El Salvador. He's a citizen of that country. What they do with him is up to them. Right? It's not our business. And a judge has no jurisdiction at all. She's going to find that out. NY says, look at the people rallying around Kilmar and Khalil. They are far left groups with a common goal to destroy the West and establish communism where they will be in charge. Yeah. And if a person who breaks into the country, who gets removal due process and is ordered back into the country, it's just like, is there any law and order at all? And I think that's part of what this is about, is to convince people that the laws are bad in some way, shape, or form, and that the laws don't matter. In other words, you can just do whatever you want in spite of leadership. It's symbolic as much as anything to bring him back to say that Trump can't do this, right? And they're trying to undermine that political success. Fred Pedamonte says, Knox, they have falafels in Syria. Falafels much more dangerous than pupusas. Oh man. Yeah, fighting over falafels. I think they're a little heavier in mass, aren't they? So they can cause more brain damage. Emily Mall, what's up? Emily, thanks for becoming a membo. We'll see you on the morning stream tomorrow. We got True KD. Hey, sup, Rob? What's up, True? Thanks for translating all the legal stuff. Thank you, True KD. Thanks for supporting our show. Thanks for watching and hanging out with us today. God bless America. Bringing in 5 new membos. God bless America. Thank you for bringing in Chief Vince, Bravo 6. We got Christo Bruyans. We got Tyler and Black Swan Socials. All gifted membos, courtesy of God bless America. Stacy Milliken. Haha, thanks for answering. I've always watched to see what you're using. Very random and much admired. Maybe it's my OCD needing those straight lines. Well, I'll tell you this. I actually did get, so this is a Mac that we're on right now, but I actually got the Magic Mouse because I thought, okay, this will give me more versatility and I'll be able to make better lines and more. And I'm way worse with the Magic Mouse than I am just with the trackpad. And I don't know if it was always like that, or it might just be the Magic Mouse and maybe it's just the desk here. But anyways, yeah, it's all trackpad, baby. We just go raw here. What's up, Alpha She-Wolf? Is that the right word? Bear? I don't know what the right word is. Alpha She-Wolf. Membo for 23 months. Happy Holy Week, watching the Watchers fam. Indeed, happy Holy Week to everybody out there celebrating. We talked about that this morning, about Palm Sunday, about Passover, making sure we're clear on the resurrection and who celebrates what. Good times. Chat with me says, could you imagine the Salvadoran president asking the media which one of them would want El Salvador to kidnap them and take them to his country? That's basically what they're arguing the United States needs to do to an El Salvadorian citizen. Yeah. How would they like it? You want El Salvador to come in and take you, Judge? They don't have jurisdiction over you, just like you don't have jurisdiction over them. Only fair. Good stuff. Hey, Bullwinkle Sprinkles says Law of Self-Defense. Andrew Branca has the underline autocorrect straightener. Oh, does he? Is there a thing? That's funny. It just corrects like this, and it just corrects it. That's hilarious. I think I know what you're talking about, like on Photoshop or something. Yeah, sometimes you get little jitters, whatever. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do. I suggest it. Underline everything you possibly can to your heart's desire until your lines are perfectly straight as can be. All right, so my friends, thank you so much for sending those donos in. Very much appreciate you. And welcome to our new membos. Grab the stream from this morning, of course, membos. We'll be back in the morning again with another membo stream. Let's see who's joining us on X. No, don't want to boost the post. Who's on X today? Elliot, what's up? Hey, the doc just dropped. Says there was another update from Elliot. Okay, this is like a 2-pager, so let's just take a look at this real quick. This is today's update. You can see this just dropped 4/14/2025 in the Kilmar Abrego case. And this was probably late, so the judge is going to be not happy. Said, I am Joseph Mazzara, new guy. We might read this again tomorrow. I'm aware of the removal during bond proceedings. Again, judge upheld this, said no bond. You're a member of MS-13, trustworthy, and supported by other evidence, copy and paste from the last one. Abrego was ordered removed by a judge. He was also granted withholding by another immigration judge. Now he's no longer eligible for removal, withholding of removal, because MS-13 is now a designated foreign terrorist. We've already got that. DHS has established a process for taking steps to remove domestic obstacles that would otherwise prevent an alien from lawfully entering. DHS does not have the authority to forcibly extract an alien from the domestic custody of a foreign sovereign nation. Now, I'm aware that Nayib was in Washington today to meet with Trump, and they held a bilateral summit at the White House this morning. And I also understand, in response to a question regarding Abrego, Trump and Bukele said, I hope you're not suggesting I smuggle a terrorist into the United States. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? Of course, I'm not going to do it. The question is preposterous. And so, Judge, if you want to watch the video, it's there on YouTube. So I hope you enjoy it tonight. All this is true, signed by Joseph Mazzara. So, outstanding. Not coming back, Judge. And Nayib, who is in control of this person, has made that statement. You wanted an update. There's an update. Not coming back. Not coming back. What's going on? We're going to check X. We got, yes, and Trump is going to have a real serious Holy Week. They're going to do a bunch of stuff. Here's a breakdown of what happened and when, and then Easter Sunday coming up soon. All right, so Elliot, thank you for that. Thanks for dropping that. Did not see that. Fred says, I created a new couple of 501c3s. He said, here's one, the Association for the Society of Administrational Coalition for the Consortium and the Alliance for the Fraternity Brotherhood and the Confederation thereof. Wow. You need like at least $1 billion because you're doing some really good work. Just ask the Democrats for that. Hey, what's up? Jesse is here. Hey, my boy, Robert. What's up, Jesse? Hey, thank you for the strength you show every day. You always make my day better. God bless, Jesse. Thank you for saying that, man. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate you saying that because that makes my day better. There's a very symbiotic thing that's happening here, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you for that. James, watch the judge order Trump to invade El Salvador. The Supreme Court's going to love this war, saying El Salvador should issue a bench warrant for the judge. That's great. Wow, this judge is trying to interfere in our criminal law. She should come down and explain herself via an El Salvadorian deposition down there. Hilarious. Great idea. Sylvia, this is insane and worth the watch. Good to see you. George, a very large group of Ukrainian white supremacists are white supremacists, so this fits. Dirty Coins, what's up? Jody, what's up, Jody? Thanks for sharing us over on the Rumbles as well. We see you, Bruce. Are you calling us fake news, Bruce, or calling them fake news? It better be them. What's up, Miss American Culture? Democrats and other criminals in suits are screwed up the Constitution so bad. It used to abuse the people. It's now used to abuse the people that it was meant to keep safe. So great comments on X. Good to see our friends on X. Thanks for following us over there, following other watchers in the wild out there. One old guy's on YouTube saying, took may advise. Took may advise, or take my advice. Is that maybe what you're saying? Your advice has been taken. Thank you for sending it. One old guy. Appreciate it. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for being here. It has been a beautiful Monday stream. We're going to have a great week ahead. We're going to kick it off tomorrow with Judge Zinnis having a meltdown in her courtroom tomorrow. That's going to be fun. So we'll come back tomorrow. We'll get into it again. Before we wrap it up on the day, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths who keep this place nice and orderly around here. K-Bean, Donut Mind Me. We got Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek in the house. Modding the fort down, keeping things nice and orderly. Geegum Geegum, memeing it up for us. Elliot, Doc Master, and now Poet Master. If you missed some of his poetry, it's beautiful. And Just Rhonda, purveyor of fine emojis, all making the show amazing. Thank you for your help. My friends, that's going to be it for us on the day. We are going over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And we'd love to see you there. Otherwise, my friends, we'll pause there for the evening. Membos on Locals, hang tight. If we don't see you there, we'll see you back here tomorrow, because we will be back here and we're going to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.